Commander Elias Trent sat alone in his quarters aboard the diplomatic cruiser Unity's Path, staring at the strange message blinking on his console. It was marked with the royal seal of the Valari Empire, an ancient and secretive alien race, known for their strict isolation and cold elegance. They rarely contacted outsiders, especially humans. Yet the message was clear, a personal summons from Queen Cerelia herself. No explanation, no formalities, just coordinates to their homeworld, and a line that read, "You must come immediately, only you." Elias, a former soldier turned ambassador, had seen many strange things across the stars, but something about this message gave him an uneasy feeling. Still, curiosity and duty pushed him forward. Within hours, his ship arrived above the misty, silver planet of Velar's Prime. The landing bay was silent, guarded by tall, expressionless warriors in silver armor. They did not speak, only motioned for him to follow. He was escorted through winding crystalline halls, past glowing blue pillars, and silent watchers, until he reached a towering door unlike anything he had ever seen. It opened without a sound, revealing a vast chamber lit by soft floating orbs, and there she stood, Queen Cerelia, tall and graceful, her presence both regal and tired. Her face was calm, but her deep violet eyes held whirring. She raised a slender hand, silencing the guards, and beckoned him closer. "Commander Trent," she said softly, her voice like music yet edged with desperation. "I would not summon you unless it was urgent." Elias bowed slightly, unsure what to expect. The queen turned and led him deeper into the chamber, where a glowing cocoon-like structure hovered just above the ground. Inside it, barely visible through the light, was a young Valari female, still and silent, her skin pale, her features strained. "This is my daughter," the queen whispered. "Princess Thalina." Elias stared, confused. The princess looked unconscious, her body floating as if weightless. "What happened to her?" he asked carefully. The queen's voice trembled as she replied, "She is dying. Not of wounds or sickness, but of something we cannot explain. And for reasons we do not understand. Only you may be able to help her." Elias took a cautious step closer, feeling a faint hum in the air, like a distant song at the edge of hearing. "I'm no healer," he said. "Why me?" The queen turned to him fully now, her royal mask slipping for a moment, revealing the true fear beneath. "Because she touched a human mind once, yours. During the Unity Conference, 3 years ago. You don't remember it, but during a shared diplomatic meditation, her mind briefly brushed against yours. Since then, something awakened in her. She changed. She grew curious, emotional, unstable. We tried everything, but she began to slip away, as if drowning in thoughts and feelings our kind were never meant to endure." Elias felt the hairs on his arms rise. He remembered the conference, vague memories, long speeches, a strange moment of dizziness. Could that fleeting connection have done this? "You think I can fix her?" he asked, uncertain. "I believe," the queen said with quiet intensity, "that only a human can reach her now. She is trapped between our world and yours, lost in feelings she does not understand. We do not feel the way you do. We do not dream. But you, Elias Trent, have walked both paths, war and peace, duty and sorrow. She needs that. She needs you." The air seemed heavier now, as if the room itself held its breath. Elias stepped closer to the glowing pod, peering into the face of the unconscious princess. She looked serene, but there was a tension in her brow, a silent scream, and just beneath the surface. As he reached out, a flicker of energy jumped from the pod to his fingers, and for a split second, he saw something impossible: his own childhood home on Earth, a tree in his backyard, a dog long dead, all flashing through her eyes. He stumbled back, heart pounding. "I saw my memories," he whispered. The queen nodded. "Her mind has latched onto yours. She is drowning in human thoughts and cannot surface. You must go to her." Elias hesitated. This was far beyond diplomacy, beyond logic, but something in his gut, something deeply human, told him this wasn't just about an alien princess. It was about connection, about the line between thought and feeling, between mind and soul. He squared his shoulders and gave a single nod. What do I need to do? The queen's eyes shimmered with a faint tear. Enter her mind, guide her back. As the guards prepared the link device and the room dimmed to a soft twilight, Elias took one last look at the sleeping princess and thought to himself, what kind of story am I stepping into? But he knew the answer already. The kind where humanity might just make the difference. Elias Trent lay on the smooth crystal floor. Strange Volari machines hummed softly around him, their lights pulsing in slow rhythms like a heartbeat. A thin silver band had been placed around his head, connecting him to the glowing cocoon that held Princess Thalana. The room was quiet except for the low sound of energy flowing between them, and he felt a strange warmth crawl into his mind. Then, everything changed. One moment, he was in the royal chamber, and the next he stood in a place that didn't belong to any real world. It looked like a garden of light and shadow, full of floating shapes and sounds that danced without music. The sky was filled with shifting colors, and the ground pulsed beneath his feet like living glass. Elias turned slowly, unsure if he was dreaming or drifting between thoughts. Then he heard her voice, soft, confused, and full of pain. Who am I? It came from everywhere and nowhere. He followed it, walking through a forest made of memory and feeling, where each step seemed to echo moments from his past. A hallway from his old academy, a starship corridor. The face of his brother laughing in the sun, but they weren't his memories alone. He began to see other scenes of Thalana's life. She stood on high balconies, watched over by distant tide tutors. She walked alone in silent halls, her thoughts locked in cold logic. Her life had been quiet, controlled, without laughter or sadness. Then, it shifted. He saw her standing at the Unity conference, eyes wide as she glanced at him for the first time. That brief psychic connection had cracked something open in her, something deep and dangerous. Now, she wandered through this strange shared mind world, pulled between her nature and his. He found her sitting by a lake that shimmered like stars. Her eyes were wide, and her expression lost. I don't understand these feelings, she said. They burn. They won't stop. Elias sat beside her, not knowing what to say at first. That's how it is for humans, he told her quietly. We feel everything. Sometimes too much. She looked at him, her eyes reflecting fear. I was never taught how. We were never meant to feel like this. I see memories of your life, and they make me shake. Why do humans hold on to pain? Why do you cry for people who are gone? He took a deep breath, because it means they mattered. Feeling pain shows we were alive. It's part of love, part of being human. Thalana touched her chest, her fingers trembling. I feel like I'm breaking. Elias reached out slowly and took her hand. You're not breaking, you're changing. And change is never easy. The world around them shifted again, turning stormy and dark. Winds of memory howled through the air, flinging broken images across the sky. Thalana screamed, clutching her head as voices filled the space, her people's cold logic battling the new storm of emotion. Elias held her tightly as the storm pressed down on them. You're not alone, he said firmly. I'm here. I'll help you through this. She shook her head. It hurts too much. I don't know how to live with it. Then let me show you, Elias said. Let me guide you through what it means to feel, to remember, to hope. The winds calmed slightly as her eyes met his. Then a deep voice echoed through the space, not Thalana's, not Elias's, but something ancient and cold. You are not welcome here, human. Leave before you destroy everything. Elias stood up, shielding Thalana. Who are you? He shouted. But no answer came, only the wind rising again and the sky darkening. Thalana clutched his arm. It's something old. Something my kind buried long ago. I didn't know it was there. Elias realized they had awoken more than emotions. They had stirred something locked deep inside the Volari mind, a guardian, a program, or perhaps a remnant of forgotten times meant to keep emotion out forever. And now it saw him as a threat. He held onto Thalana and whispered, "We're going to face this together. I'm not letting go." The world shifted once more, and they stood before a gate made of light and thought, behind which shadows moved. The warning voice returned, colder this time, "You do not belong in our legacy. Your emotions are poison." Elias squared his shoulders, his grip tight on Thalana's hand. "Then maybe your legacy needs to change." As the gate began to open, and the shadowy figure behind it stepped forward, Elias knew this journey was far from over. Something deeper was waiting, and it would not let them pass without a fight not of weapons, but of belief, of understanding, and of what it truly meant to feel. Elias stood before the gate of light, his heart pounding as the strange figure behind it slowly took shape. It was tall, featureless, and glowing with a cold, white energy that pulsed with silence. The voice returned, calm but sharp like ice, warning him once more that emotion was a virus, that he had brought danger to the Valari legacy. Elias didn't back down. He held Thalana's hand tightly, her grip cold but growing warmer as she looked at him with confusion and fear in her eyes. She whispered, "It knows what I've become. It wants to erase me." Elias looked into her face, seeing not an alien princess, but someone trying to understand what it meant to live with feeling, someone standing at the edge of something new. "Then we won't let it," he said. As the gate vanished into smoke, the world changed again. They now stood inside a vast space filled with shifting symbols and strange lines of light that moved like veins through the air. Elias realized they were inside the core of Thalana's mind, or perhaps deeper inside the shared genetic memory of her entire species. The figure loomed ahead, its voice now clearer, more direct. "The Valari were once like you, human, emotional, lost. But we chose clarity. We chose order. Emotion nearly destroyed us." Elias took a step forward. "And now it's destroying your daughter because she can't run from it anymore." The being said nothing, but the lines of light around them began to twist and flicker, showing brief images from Valari, history, wars, chaos, loss, all followed by silence and the building of their cold empire. Thalana gasped as the images played, clutching her head. They locked all of this away. "I wasn't supposed to see it." Elias knelt beside her and placed a hand over hers. "You were never meant to be hollow. You're more alive now than they've allowed in centuries." He reached into his own memory and projected something forward, a warm night back on Earth, a small campfire, laughter with old friends, the soft comfort of music playing in the background, the quiet sadness, when a goodbye is final. Thalana stared at the memory as if it were a miracle. So much pain, but so much beauty, too. Why would anyone choose to forget this? Elias stood again and faced the entity. "You buried your own soul to survive, but she's bringing it back. Let her." The figure grew brighter, its voice louder. "No. Emotion is instability. She threatens all we built. We will remove her." Suddenly, sharp lines of energy shot through the space, wrapping around Thalana like vines. She cried out, struggling as the ground beneath her feet began to crack. Elias rushed forward, grabbing her as the vines tightened. "Fight it," he yelled. "Don't let it win." She looked into his eyes, breathing fast. "I don't know how." He spoke quickly, sharing moments from his past, his first love, his worst loss, the day he chose to walk away from war and become a peacemaker. "Feeling doesn't make us weak. It gives us reason. It gives us hope. You have that now. Use it." Thalana's eyes glowed suddenly, her expression changing from fear to determination. She screamed not in pain, but in defiance, and the vines burst apart, the light in the space dimmed, the being recoiling slightly. "What have you done?" it hissed. Elias helped her stand. She chose to feel. "That's what you were afraid of." Thalana looked around the space, now calming, the symbols slowing their movement. "The others, my people, they don't know. They're still trapped like I was." Elias nodded. "But you can show them. You can be the first to change." The being's form wavered, less solid now, flickering like a dying signal. If you continue, you will bring chaos back to Valari Mines. Elias stepped forward. Then let there be chaos, if it means they can finally be whole again. A deep silence fell, and then the world around them began to dissolve into soft light. The voice faded with a final whisper, "You will regret this." Elias and Thalana opened their eyes in the real world at the same time. The glow around the cocoon faded. Alarms were ringing faintly outside. Voices shouting. The royal guards entered quickly, and the queen rushed in, fear etched on her face. "Thalana," she cried. The princess slowly sat up, her movements steady, but different, more alive, more aware. She turned to her mother and smiled faintly. "I'm not broken anymore." The queen froze, eyes wide, sensing something new in her daughter. Elias stood beside her, exhausted but certain. She's still Valari, but now, she understands what it means to feel. The queen looked from him to her daughter, then to the silent machines around them, unsure of what came next. But Elias knew this was only the beginning. The code had been changed. The Valari had been built on silence, but one voice had spoken through the noise, and that voice, human and fragile, had been enough to wake a sleeping soul. The chamber grew colder as the glow around the cocoon faded, and though Thalana was awake, Elias could feel something in the air had shifted. It was subtle, like the calm before a storm, but real. The queen, standing frozen with her hand hovering near her daughter's face, suddenly gasped and staggered back, clutching her head. Her guards rushed forward, but she waved them away weakly as her body trembled. "Something is wrong," she whispered. Then more voices came outside the chamber, from the corridors beyond, guards calling for medics, Valari attendants falling to their knees, their eyes flickering with confusion. Elias turned to Thalana, whose face had gone pale again. "What's happening?" he asked, his voice low. She closed her eyes, as if listening to something deep within. "It's the old memory," she said, "the thing we saw in the mind space. It didn't vanish, it was sleeping. Now it's waking." The queen collapsed to the floor, barely conscious, her body glowing faintly with strange light. One of the guards shouted, "She's linked to the core mind. Something's infecting it." Thalana turned to Elias, fear returning to her face. "Every Valari is connected to the core, the collective thoughts of our people. That thing, that ancient logic being, it was part of the core once, locked away long ago when we abandoned feeling. But I touched it, and now it's spreading again." Elias felt a chill run down his spine. He had assumed the threat had been defeated when they left the dream world, but it had only followed them back into reality, silent and invisible, slipping into the neural web that tied the Valari together. "It's punishing anyone who tries to feel," Thalana said softly. "It started with me. Now it's reaching others." That's why the queen collapsed. Elias looked around as more attendants came, their movements slow and dazed, their voices unsure. Some seemed to cry without understanding why, while others stood frozen, unable to speak. "It's attacking the very idea of emotion," Elias muttered. "Trying to erase it before it spreads too far." Thalana nodded. "And if we don't stop it, our entire species will become empty again, or worse." Elias knew what had to be done, but the idea was terrifying. "We need to go back in," he said. "Back into the shared mind, together. But this time, we take control of it." Thalana hesitated, then reached for his hand. "If I go alone, I won't survive it. But with you." She didn't finish the thought, but he understood. They prepared quickly. The neural link devices were unstable now, flickering from the spreading corruption, but still working. The room dimmed again as they lay beside each other, hands touching, the thin bands placed around their heads. The guards watched nervously, unsure whether they were witnessing a rescue or a final fall. In a blink, Elias was back in the shared mind space, but it looked nothing like before. The beautiful sky was gone. Now there was only darkness and harsh red light bleeding from cracks in the ground. The core memory, once full of flowing thought and emotion, now resembled a dying machine. The figure waited for them, larger and stronger than before, no longer hiding behind illusions. You were warned, it said, its voice deep and echoing. You bring chaos. You must be erased. Thalina stood firm beside Elias. I'm not afraid anymore, she said, and her voice echoed with a strength he hadn't heard before. She took a step forward and summoned a vision her own memory, bright and clear, her first time laughing, her first moment of wonder, standing in the earth garden from Elias's mind. The red cracks pulsed and hissed. This is not order. The being growled. This is weakness. Elias added his own memories, his mother's embrace, a child's smile during a peace mission, the silent grief of a soldier lost. Together, their thoughts became a light that began to push the red away. But the being struck back, sending waves of cold logic toward them, trying to break their bond, to separate their minds. Elias held on tightly. We aren't leaving without finishing this, he shouted. You were part of them once. You kept order. Yes, but you also killed everything that made them alive. The being paused, its form flickering. Thalina stepped forward again, her voice steady. Let me feel. Let my people feel. It's not weakness. It's life. The red cracks split open one final time as the being roared, but this time, it wasn't rage. It was fear. Light burst from Elias and Thalina, joined now in a shared memory that was neither fully human nor fully Valari. It was something new, hopeful, imperfect, and real. The world shattered, and then faded into soft white. When Elias opened his eyes again, he was back in the royal chamber. Thalina sat up beside him, breathing slowly. The queen had awakened, as well, and her eyes were wet not with pain, but with something gentler. I felt her, she whispered. I felt her love for me. The room was quiet, but not empty. All across the palace, voices were speaking again, no longer frozen. Emotion had returned and it had survived. Elias sat quietly, knowing the danger wasn't over, but the worst had passed. A memory had been awoken, but so had something stronger. A future where the Valari no longer feared their own hearts. The chamber was still, bathed in a soft golden glow as Elias slowly sat up, his body weak, but his mind clear, the memory of what he had seen still fresh in his thoughts. The moment when light broke through the ancient being's control, the way Thalina's presence pushed back the darkness, not with force, but with emotion, with truth, with something the Valari had hidden from for too long. Around him, attendants whispered, some in confusion, some in awe, their faces showing feelings they had never allowed themselves to show before. The queen stood nearby, no longer regal and unreadable, but simply a mother watching her daughter with quiet wonder and the faint shimmer of tears in her eyes. Thalina rose from where she had been lying, her step steady, her gaze bright, as if something inside her had awakened fully at last. She turned to Elias and smiled, a real smile, filled with warmth and understanding, and in that moment, he saw the beginning of a change, not just in her, but in an entire people. The ancient logic that once ruled the core mind was gone, broken, by shared memories and the strength of human feeling. But Elias knew that healing would take time, and not everyone would accept it so easily. He followed Thalina as she stepped onto a platform that rose slowly toward the Grand Thought Hall, a place where Valari leaders connected their minds to speak as one, a sacred space untouched by outsiders. Today, for the first time in their history, a human would stand there not as an enemy, not as a threat, but as a bridge between silence and sound, between reason and feeling. As they entered the vast chamber, lined with floating lights and swirling patterns of energy, the other elders appeared, linked through the core, their expressions wary and uncertain. Thalina stepped forward first, her voice calm and strong. I have touched something we forgot, she said, and I have returned not with danger, but with life. Some of the elders reacted with fear, others with interest, but none could deny the shift they felt. Elias took a breath and stepped beside her. You were right to fear emotion, he said. It's not easy. It's messy, painful, sometimes overwhelming. But it's also beautiful. It makes us care, makes us grow. It's the reason I came when you called, Not because of duty, because I wanted to help. Silence filled the hall as the core mind pulsed, gently, no longer controlled by the cold being that once suppressed every feeling. Now it was open, waiting. Thalana reached out with her thoughts, and slowly, the others joined her, one by one, their minds brushing hers, unsure but curious. They saw what she had seen: laughter, grief, courage, love, and began to understand that these things were not poison, but power. The queen closed her eyes, her presence touching the network last, and when she opened them again, her face held something new: acceptance. That night, under the twin moons of Velar's prime, a new ritual took place, not of silence and formality, but of expression. Music played not artificial tones, but melodies drawn from Earth and reshaped by Valari minds into something uniquely theirs. Dancers moved freely, their faces showing joy. People spoke not with caution, but with meaning. Elias watched it all quietly, seated beside Thalana, who now wore no royal mask, no ceremonial chains, only a soft glow in her eyes that matched the light in her heart. "Will it last?" he asked her. She looked up at the sky, then back at him. "It won't be easy. Some will resist, some will be afraid. But we've taken the first step. And that's what matters." Elias nodded slowly, feeling the truth in her words. For the first time, the Valari had chosen to remember who they were before they gave everything up for control, and they had done so not through war or conquest, but through the quiet strength of a human soul willing to reach across a gap wider than stars. As the celebration continued, Thalana took his hand, and for a long moment they sat in peace, not as alien and outsider, but as to people bound by something deeper than logic, something both simple and extraordinary: emotion, connection, life. And as the stars shimmered above, Elias knew this was only the beginning of a new chapter, one where two worlds, once strangers, had found common ground in the heart of what it truly meant to be alive.